The real Ghostbusters was one of the best animated TV shows to ever come out of the 1980s. There was well over 100 episodes, and each one you kind of had a zany adventure with the Ghostbusters. Now recently I bought the box set because I wanted to revisit the cartoon because I haven't seen it in the longest time, and I think in parts it does still hold up. There are some pretty good episodes and the animation can be a little bit rough in parts but amazing in others as well. And there are actually some pretty good stories, but I will say this, not every single episode is a winner. And today I'm going to talk about one of those episodes, and this particular episode I think is absolutely terrifying, especially if you're a kid watching this back in the 80s. Today we're going to talk about one of the creepiest episodes in the entire series of The Real Ghostbusters, The Boogieman Cometh. Now, like I said, The Real Ghostbusters actually did introduce some pretty creepy characters in between the majority of the fun throwaway ghosts. And this episode, The Boogieman Cometh, introduces probably one of the most creepiest characters ever to grace a screen of a Real Ghostbusters cartoon. So, the episode starts with the Ghostbusters chasing a mobster ghost called Louie, who is driving a big truck through the streets of New York. And I must admit, when I'm watching an episode of The Real Ghostbusters, I find it a little bit hit and miss. Sometimes the animation is quite ropey, and then sometimes you get a little bit of some really nice animation, like they've really tried a little bit harder on that little segment, and then it kind of goes back to being a little bit rough in between the action sequences. Some episodes seem to be nicely animated more than others, and this one I would say is one of the better ones. Now, after they finally bust the ghost, who for some reason forgot that he was dead,
"You're a ghost." "Oh yeah, I keep forgetting."
They return to the firehouse for some sleep, but not before Peter Venkman threatens Slimer with a brand new ghost bomb that Egon has invented because Slimer slimed his pillow. And this is a great bit of foreshadowing as the ghost bomb turns up later in this episode, so don't forget it. In the middle of the night, Janine announces that they have guests and they need to get out of bed as she brings in two children who have apparently just left their house in the middle of the night to seek out the help of the Ghostbusters whilst their parents are back home sound asleep. They tell the Ghostbusters that they are being terrorised by the Boogeyman, who is back at their home hiding in their bedroom closet. And for some reason Egon seems a little bit scared by this.
"It's the Boogeyman!"
"What?"
And as it turns out, Egon was also visited by the Boogeyman back in his youth. The Ghostbusters head to the house and immediately investigate the kid's bedroom without waking the parents. And it isn't long before the Boogeyman makes his appearance by appearing through a portal that is in the kid's closet door. And it's absolutely terrifying, and I kind of understand now why I had so many nightmares as a kid if I was watching this cartoon week after week. Okay, so let me just describe the Boogeyman. He has a really massively oversized head, spiky hair, disturbing teeth, blood red lips and bright yellow eyes. He has massive pointed ears and hooved feet, which I definitely think was a nice touch. But I think the most disturbing part of this character is that for some reason they decided to give him a little bit of stubble. And I don't know why, but that little bit of stubble on the edge of his chin just creeps me out more than anything else. Now, it turns out that the Ghostbusters can't trap the Boogeyman as he's not a ghost, so instead they manage to blast the Boogeyman back into his dimension. But they know it's not the end. Unfortunately, the blasting awoke the parents, who are quite understandably pretty pissed that four men are in the kid's bedroom, and ask the Ghostbusters to leave. Even after Ray tries to explain that the Boogeyman is in their kid's closet, they still ask them to leave.
"Thank you so much for stopping by. Why don't you leave now?"
Which is totally understandable considering, but on the other hand, they are the Ghostbusters. Why not believe them? Now, back at the firehouse, Egon explains that he has met the Boogeyman when he was a child and that they must stop him from feeding off kids' fear. But they can't go back to the house, you know, because of the pissed off parents.
"Why don't you leave now?"
So the Ghostbusters decide that they need to find another closet by using their PKE meters to detect the right kind of vibrations or something like that. Now, back in the kids' bedroom, the Boogeyman makes another appearance and terrorises the kids for bringing the Ghostbusters. And once again, it's quite a scary scene. In fact, it was this very scene that scared my daughter a few years ago when she was younger. And we were watching this episode, and when this scene came on, she asked me to turn it off. Now, luckily, Winston is actually outside of the house because he decided to pay them a visit, and he sees a boogeyman and shoots the boogeyman through an open window, and he retreats back into his world. Meanwhile, back with the Ghostbusters, they have rented an apartment that is giving off these spooky vibrations and make the room look like a kid's bedroom, and they use Ray as the bait. Once Ray is asleep, the boogeyman appears and the Ghostbusters jump into action by blasting the boogeyman back through the portal, but this time they follow him through to his dimension, which is an absolute mind trip, and the laws of physics simply don't apply in this world, which has many different doors to many different closets in the entire world. It's quite cool and reminds me of a certain scene in Labyrinth. And just before Venkman jumps into the portal, he turns to Egon and says,
"See you on the other side, Egon."
Which I believe is another callback to the original movie, where Venkman turns to Ray and says, "See you on the other side, Ray," which I think is very cool. It's quite a nice little Easter egg.
See you on the other side, Ray.
The Ghostbusters start to give chase through the strange dimension back into the real world and then back into the strange dimension once again. And there is a certain scene where the Ghostbusters are momentarily trapped by the boogeyman in a dome made of snakes, and it's at this point that Ray mentions blasting the dome could be as worse as crossing the streams, which is a callback to the movie, which I thought was rather cool.
It could be even worse than crossing the streams. Whoa!
There's something very important I forgot to tell you.
What?
Don't cross the streams.
The Ghostbusters decide to blast the dome and escape and set a trap for the boogeyman by hooking up proton packs to the ghost bomb. You remember the foreshadowing from earlier? Now it's paid off, but the boogeyman appears before the trap is set. So Egon faces the boogeyman whilst the Ghostbusters set the trap. The boogeyman opens the door to the kids' room from earlier so that they can watch him destroy the Ghostbusters. That's some pretty extreme stuff, I would say, for a Saturday morning kids cartoon. But luckily, the kids decide to stand up against the boogeyman and overcome their fears, and they use marbles to make the boogeyman slip and fall. The Ghostbusters and the kids jump through the portal as a ghost bomb and proton packs explode, closing off the portal for good and trapping the boogeyman inside his own realm. And this time the parents enter the bedroom just in time to see the demise of the boogeyman, which is a good thing because now they don't think that the Ghostbusters are predators.
What are you doing here today?
It's an absolutely brilliant episode, probably one of the best in the entire series. Actually, it's a beloved episode by many Ghostbusters fans all over the world, and it has some beautiful animation included in a series that sometimes was a little bit hit and miss when it came to the animation. But I think the main thing that makes this episode work is the story, and instead of just fighting a generic ghost, they are fighting an entity that we all feared as kids. The closet monster. And of course the fact that the victims of the episode were also kids, so maybe as kids we all kind of related to the situation that the kids were in. Like I said, after watching this episode I kind of understand why I had nightmares as a kid, because Ghostbusters was one of my all-time favourite shows and there are so many creepy characters on the show, and I've noticed that after revisiting the series after so long, it's just so cool. So yeah, that was the Boogeyman episode. I think it is probably one of the scariest episodes in the entire series. Like I said before, my daughter actually watched this with me a few years ago, so she was a little bit smaller. And I remember getting up to the scene where he actually comes out of the closet and she just wanted me to turn it off. We had watched a few more episodes before this and she didn't have a problem, but it was this particular episode that actually creeped her out. And watching this now with adult eyes, and you go back to some of the other episodes which were kind of tame, and then you had one like this which was actually quite freaky. And like I said, the over-exaggerated features of the Boogeyman really did make it that more creepy. The big eyes, the big ears, the big teeth, the blood red lips, and like I said before, the stubble on the chin for some reason really made me uneasy more than any other of those features that he had. The stubble really did creep me out a little bit more. And I really like that the Boogeyman had hooved feet, which actually reminded me of the devil for some reason. So it kind of made it a little bit more scary in that respect. Maybe they were trying to channel the devil whilst designing this character, because they truly did make a truly terrifying character. There are some other episodes in this series that stand out amongst the others, and if this episode does well and you like it, I might actually review a couple more of these episodes, the ones that stand out. It was an awesome cartoon show. They don't make cartoons like this anymore, and it's just a pleasure to revisit, and it's a pleasure to talk about it. So until next time, guys, if you like this episode, leave me a comment, leave me a like, and tell me how much you liked it, and tell me if this episode scared you as a kid, and if it didn't, tell me which ones did, because I really want to know. so I know which ones to look out for in future. So until next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.